Welcome back to Trend Guards, where we cut through the industry hype and bring you the verified facts on AI and tech. Today, we're diving into a major explainer. On July 28, 2026, PJM Interconnection, that's the largest U.S. electrical grid operator, announced they're literally going to start rationing power to AI data centers next year. This comes right on the heels of a massive grid instability event. So what exactly happened? How do we know? Why does it matter? And how is this going to impact you directly? Let's get into it.
To really grasp the scale of PJM's historic move, we have to look at the exact timeline of a critical incident from Northern Virginia in July 2026. Basically, a single power line fell. At 0 seconds, automated systems in local data centers detected a voltage dip. Boom! Just 5 seconds later, backup diesel generators and batteries kicked on. By the 30-second mark, a staggering 3.1 gigawatts of electrical load just vanished from the grid instantly as these facilities disconnected themselves to protect their hardware. It took a full 11 minutes for the PJM grid to stabilize from the resulting voltage spikes. We're talking lights flickering all the way from Virginia to Chicago.
That 30-second drop was the tipping point. On July 28th, TechCrunch explicitly reported on PJM's response, confirming, and I quote, "They will begin curtailing power to data centers during shortages, starting June 2027. So this isn't some rumor or future prediction, this is a confirmed structural shift in how American energy is distributed.
Let's put some context around PJM Interconnection. They aren't a small regional player. They're the largest electrical grid operator in the U.S., serving 67 million people across 13 states and D.C. Based on their official data, their latest capacity auction came up 6.8 gigawatts short. The underlying power supply simply isn't there to meet the surging demand. Because of that shortfall, this unprecedented curtailment protocol is now going to apply to data center facilities drawing 50 megawatts or larger whenever the grid is stressed.
We really need to look at the sheer financial scale that's causing this massive strain. According to data published by Bloomberg NEF on July 29, 2026, the 14 largest public data center operators globally are going to hit nearly $750 billion in capital expenditures this year alone. That's a verified 67% jump from 2025.
And Goldman Sachs projects that U.S. data center power demand is scaling at just a breakneck pace. We're talking 31 gigawatts in 2025, jumping to 41 gigawatts in 2026, all the way to 66 gigawatts by 2027. To put that 2027 number into perspective, 66 gigawatts is roughly the equivalent output of 66 nuclear reactors running simultaneously in America. That's a massive footprint.
So the physical grid infrastructure is acting as a hard bottleneck for all these tech investments. We can see exactly why local transformers are structurally overwhelmed by looking at the power density per computing rack. Traditional data centers require about 5 to 15 kilowatts per rack, but AI-optimized racks, they demand anywhere from 30 to well over 100 kilowatts. This staggering increase in localized power density means the neighborhood grid infrastructure was simply never designed to handle this kind of concentrated load. The crucial takeaway here is that the infrastructure just isn't ready. Bloomberg recently reported that roughly 50% of all U.S. data centers planned for 2026 cannot open. They're delayed by hard power constraints and a severe lack of specialized electrical equipment, especially transformers, which literally have wait times stretching into years now.
So, how are tech giants trying to secure their own immense power supplies to bypass these crippling grid delays? Well, they're going straight to the source. Microsoft actually signed a 20-year, $16 billion contract to restart Unit 1 of 3 Mile Island by late 2027. What you should understand here is that every single watt generated from this massive nuclear restart is contracted to go exclusively toward powering Microsoft's AI operations, completely bypassing standard public grid distribution.
But we need to provide some critical balance here. Researchers at the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists noted that nuclear power, quote, will be unable to provide any significant boost to the electricity consumption of data centers anytime soon. While restarts like 3 Mile Island buy some time for specific companies, building entirely new reactors takes a decade or more. So in the interim, the industry is going to be forced to rely heavily on natural gas and backup diesel generators to fill those massive supply gaps.
Now, what's absolutely vital to understand is how these macro infrastructure challenges directly connect to your monthly utility bills. In PJM's latest capacity market auction, data centers accounted for $6.3 billion in charges. That is nearly 40% of the entire capacity auction. These are real, tangible costs absorbed into the grid operator's system, driven directly by the strain of building out AI infrastructure.
And those multi-billion-dollar costs flow directly downstream to us, for consumers. The Energy Information Administration forecasts compounding residential electricity price increases. They're projecting a 5.1% average increase in 2026 and an additional 2.4% increase in 2027. This data clearly reflects that the financial burden of these grid upgrades and capacity shortages is absolutely being passed on to the residential consumer.
Looking ahead, the broader reality is pretty stark. By 2035, US AI data centers are projected to consume 20% of all domestic electricity, up from just 5.9% today. Globally, the International Energy Agency projects AI energy demand will drive total global demand up by 1 to 4%. Given these verified trajectories, it is highly probable that PJM-style energy rationing is going to become standard operating procedure for grid operators nationwide.
Which brings us to a final, critical question to wrap up this explainer. As AI's $75 billion build-out tests the absolute physical limits of our electrical grid, will local infrastructure adapt in time, or will energy rationing and spiking consumer bills simply become the new normal? The facts clearly show a collision course between digital ambition and physical reality. Thanks for joining me to look at the verified data behind the AI energy crunch. Until next time, keep your eyes on the facts and stay informed.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next video.